As wildfires rage out of control in Los Angeles, misinformation is spreading across social media thanks in part to President-elect Donald Trump. He has used the disaster to point fingers at Democratic officials and make false claims about California's water policy and federal assistance. Just last night, take a look at this. Trump reposted a meme on his Truth Social account, replacing the iconic Hollywood sign with the phrase, "Trump was right as the hills around it burn." Let's discuss with CNN political commentator and Democratic strategist Maria Cardona and former White House spokesman and for President George W. Bush, Pete Seat. Maria, let me start with you. Let's put that back up on screen again. I mean, he's been going after Democrats and their response to the fires and so on. I mean, Trump talked about uniting the country after he won election in November, and that he's putting things out like that. What do you think?
It's disgusting, and he's not even in office yet, and he's already giving us a preview, which is frankly a look back at what we already had the 4 years that he was in office. But I think this is going to be that on steroids. I think people are already exhausted what he's doing in terms of politicizing these fires after horrendous loss of life, loss of property, loss of livelihoods. You've had people on your show. It is gut-wrenching to hear their stories. You have all sorts of communities suffering, the Latino community suffering, African Americans, all kinds of communities, frankly, many of which voted for Trump. And what is he doing? He's not doing anything to help those communities, to bring the country together, to bring down costs now when they need it the most. He should be working with California leadership. He should be saying, if he has an issue with how Newsom or Democrats have dealt with this, he should say, let's sit down to figure out how we can make this better. But we know he's not capable of that because he is not a leader, he's a bully.
Pete, I mean, how is that uniting the country? I mean, he told Americans in his victory speech, it is time to unite. And yet he's putting out memes saying Trump was right with the Hollywood Hills on fire. I mean, is that the behavior of a president?
There are legitimate questions that need to be asked and answered as far as how the fire started and how it was able to engulf so many structures and so many acres so quickly. I was in Southern California in October 2007 with then President George W. Bush to see firsthand a fire that burned almost 1 million acres. It was incredibly devastating. But even then, there are questions that need to be asked. We can't just say it's climate change and wash our hands of accountability. Among those questions, why were the hydrants running dry? Gavin Newsom himself is asking that question. What role did his refusal to divert water from Northern California to Southern California, something the Trump administration tried to do in 2020, what role did that play? What role did budget cuts play? Over $17 million cut from the fire department's budget. Those are questions that those who have lost their homes, lost their possessions, and now only have memories, they deserve to know the answers to those questions.
Oh, yeah, Pete, no question about it. And we'll hold their feet to all of this. There's no question about it. But, I do want to raise the question. I mean, is he really going to do this for 4 years, put these kinds of memes out there when people are suffering, when their whole communities have been destroyed? He's going after the governor, calling him Newsom and so on. I mean, come on, right?
Donald Trump takes the permanent campaign maybe a little too literally and to heart. And there are better and more appropriate ways to ask those questions. But this is the way Donald Trump does it. And people still put him back in office. Maria says that folks are exhausted and tired. Well, obviously not. The last election says a completely different story.
And Maria, I do want to get to the confirmation hearings because they're going to get started for several Trump cabinet picks, including Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary, Doug Burgum for Interior, Doug Collins for the VA. Obviously, Burgum and Collins will probably sail right through. How much should Democrats engage on the Hegseth pick? This is going to be a battle, you think?
I think it should be. I think they should engage on the Hegseth pick. And look, there is an assumption that presidents get to choose who their cabinet secretaries are and who their appointees are. Absolutely. But there's also an assumption that president-elects will pick the most qualified people, will pick the people who are going to mostly unite the country, will pick people who are experts in their field, will pick people who do not have scandalous, controversial backgrounds like Pete Hegseth. And frankly, others. He's not the only one. So I think Democrats should absolutely unite to give Trump the appointees that he wants, the ones that are actually qualified, that have good backgrounds and expertise in the areas that that he has appointed them in. But then there are others like Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, Patel, Robert Kennedy Jr. I mean, I think those are the most dangerous. Those are the top dangerous four, I believe, that deserve for Democrats to really not just pick a fight, but ask the tough questions. Let the American people know why these picks are so dangerous to the country, to national security, to our health care, to the future of what we want this country to be. And so I do think that it's worth for Democrats to bring up those questions.
And Pete, I do want to ask you about this. J.D. Vance, the vice president-elect, was on Fox yesterday saying that these violent January 6 rioters should not receive pardons. Let's listen to that.
I think it's very simple. Look, if you protested peacefully on January the 6th and you've had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. And there's a little bit of a gray area there, but we're very much committed to seeing the equal administration of law. And there are a lot of people, we think, in the wake of January the 6th who were prosecuted unfairly. We need to rectify that.
After that interview, Vance appeared to try to clean it up in a post on X, saying some of the rioters were, quote, unjustly locked up, including people who were, quote, provoked and got a garbage trial. Pete, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, I think that of all the things that Trump is going to do on January 20th or afterward, this has the potential to divide the country unlike anything else.
Well, Donald Trump was pretty consistent throughout the campaign that there could very well be pardons for those who participated in January 6th. But he's also said recently that it's not going to be blanket. It's not going to be everyone, that they're going to look at these cases person by person, issue by issue, and make a determination. So I think J.D. Vance is probably correct that those who actually committed violent acts on that day won't see a pardon.
All right, Maria and Pete,
Let's hope so.
We'll be watching. Yeah, that's going to be critical to watch all of that. We'll be right back.